I'd like to discuss today the most important question that you face in your life. What is that? Is it, what am I going to do with my life? That's important. Is it, how do I get this person over here to pay attention to me? That's important too. Is it, how do I make my parents happy? How do I make my parents shut up? Those are important too. But I want you to go beyond that. What is the question that you ask yourselves every night when you crawl into the most private corner of your souls? The question is, how can I be cool? So, how can this old man tell you something about this cosmic issue of coolness? You may ask yourself, are you just wasting your time listening to me? Well, I will say to you in response to that, what I say all the time, which is just listen. Pay attention to what I have to say. Much of what I have to say is in the form of questions. Consider it. Take what you like. Reject what you don't like. Just listen. All right. So, first, where is coolness to be found? Is it in the cars we drive? Is it in the clothes we wear? Is it in the people that we know? You are all thinking people, and I don't believe a single one of you accepts that those things are coolness. So where is it? I believe coolness, the road to coolness, is the same road as the road to inner peace. All right? If you can be happy with yourselves, if you can find some inner harmony, then you will radiate coolness. All right? So then, how do we find this inner peace? Where do we live? Where do we live? I don't mean in this chair. I don't mean in the dorm in Austin. I mean, where do we live? And we live up here. This is where things happen in our brains. We know our brains do processing. We know our brains receive the signals from our senses. This is where we live. If we are going to find inner peace, then we'd better consider what's going on up here. Now, what's up there? Think of it as sort of like a room. Is this spooky place that's dark and has cobwebs and needs cleaning? Not going to have much inner peace if that's what you're living with all the time. Or is it something that's nice and bright and airy and there's sun in there and it's just a pleasant place to be? I think that's a good candidate for inner peace. So much of what I tell you today is how I think one might get up here and do some house cleaning. Okay? Get up here, find out what's going on, what needs to be thrown away. Okay. In 1955, there was a play called Inherit the Wind that came out, and a few years after that, a movie was made from it. And it dealt with the trial that John Scopes went through regarding his teaching of evolution in the state of Tennessee. And it was an incident that had happened actually in 1925. In the play, they have a couple important characters, one of them representing the real-life lawyer in the case, Clarence Darrow, and the lawyer for Scopes, and the other one representing the person who was brought in to prosecute Scopes. It was William Jennings Bryan, an important politician, as well as an anti-evolutionist. And at one point, the character representing Darrow is questioning, actually on the witness stand, the character representing William Jennings Bryan. And he's asking about things he thinks about, okay? And have you considered this? And have you considered that? And so forth. And the Bryant character says, I don't think about things I don't think about. Now that may be sort of tautologically true, okay, but we know it means something more than that. I don't think about things I don't think about. Really suggests that he doesn't think about things that are uncomfortable to him. What I'm considering today for you is maybe it's time to think about those things you don't think about. Okay. Now, there's going to be a little story in what I say today. And the alternative title for my talk is The Backpack of Life. And what's that all about? Well, I'm trying to use this travel through your lives. And a metaphor for that is going on hiking trips, okay? And when you go on these hiking trips, you carry your backpack. When you go through your lives, you carry what's up here. What I'd like us to do is look at that backpack, or look at this brain actually, and say, what's in there? What's in there? I want you to pull out every object and say, do I need this? Not. Okay? So, little story about myself. In the 1980s, I vowed to camp in every of the 50 United States. All right? And my daughters, who thought it would be great to celebrate my procrastination, thought I should actually finish the commitment on the last possible instant I could. Now you sit there and you try to compute when that would be. Certainly you come up with December 31st, 1989. But then I have to say, yeah, but keep going. And you say, time zones, all right? And you work out that, in fact, I've got to do it in Hawaii. So Hawaii was my last state, which just happens to be our 50th state, but it was my 50th state of camping as well. And on December 31st, 1989, I went down into the crater of Haleakala on the island of Maui to do my 50th camping experience, my 50th state anyway. By that time, I wasn't even carrying a backpack. I had a one-person tent and some food and a radio, and I rolled the stuff up in my rain jacket, strapped it around my waist. That was it, okay? I had, at that point, sort of reduced to an absolute minimum what I thought I needed to take. All right, so we've got these two things right here. One is the backpack and one is your brain. One's a metaphor and one's for real. And so let's look at the backpack for a second, and you're going on a hiking trip and say, what might you take? Well, let's see. Here's a tool. Here's maybe some food. Here's some clothing. Here's something just to have fun with. I'm not saying don't take any of those things. I'm saying pick up every one of them and ask yourself, do I need this? Is this worth the effort of taking it with me? All right? So, some things we take, some things we reject, and we're going to reject them if it ain't worth the effort. Okay? I want you to do the same thing with your brains. Okay? That's your assignment now. Spend your summer, spend the rest of your lives doing this. Considering what's up here, this place that you want to be nice and clean and open and airy, because it's going to give you harmony and peace of mind, and that's the road to coolness. I want you to take the stuff up here, pull it out one at a time, and say, do I need this? Now, what sort of stuff is up here? Well, we have facts, okay? What are the atomic constituents of water? We have methods, okay? We have algorithms, if you like. We know how to alphabetize, okay? We have attitudes. What's my favorite color? We have feelings. What it was like when this person rejected me. We have memories. When we graduated from high school, when our favorite pet died. All of that's going on up in here, and I'm asking you to consider, should you have it, should you not? I'm not saying throw it all out. I am saying throw some of it out. In any case, consider it all. When I was in the 8th grade, in our math class, we learned how to do square roots with pencil and paper, okay? Now, so there's something I learned. Do I still need that? Nope. Is it fun? Maybe. It took me a long time, years later, for me to realize why it worked. It's something perhaps you know, and you sit there and you weigh it, and you say, do I need this? And if you do, great. Practice it, keep it sharp. But if you say, no, I don't, let it fade, let it decay with your brain, okay? And it just sort of goes away, and don't feel guilty about it, all right? You don't need to do those anyway. Fine. Actually, it's not just something like taking square roots with pencil and paper, though, the most difficult and most important things to deal with. It's the attitudes that are up here, and those quasi-facts that I think you should approach, you should think about. Maybe you should do some house cleaning. Imagine how many things up here are there since you were 3 years old and are there because you were told something by a big brother or a big sister who was all of 7 years old. Okay? Now, possibly still up there. Why? Because you haven't gone and thought about that. Good gracious, I've had this ridiculous thing forever because my big brother, who was twice my age, told me this thing. Would you now go up to a 7-year-old and say, tell me the truth, you must be smart, okay? Don't think so. So it's easy now not to accept things as wisdom from 7-year-olds, but are you still marching around with a bunch of stuff that you actually obtained from a 7-year-old who happened to be your big brother or your big sister? You have a bunch of authority figures in your lives, okay? Your parents, other relatives, friends of your family, teachers. And you've gotten a whole lot of these attitudes and facts and so forth from those people, okay? Now, They have handed off things to you that perhaps they believed. Maybe some of it is wisdom, maybe some of it isn't. Again, these are the sort of things that you've got to get in here. Pull out, examine, do I need this or not? When I was a little guy, my father told me, if I ate the crusts on my bread, it would help me to whistle better. Okay, I am embarrassed to tell you how old I was until I rejected that. All right? And I will say, older than you people. Okay? I just hadn't considered it. I could not imagine my father would have fooled me on something. Okay? I just couldn't imagine. By the way, when I started giving this lecture, by the way, that was 1984, when I started giving this lecture and I wrote it down and my father read it, he felt very bad, okay? Of course, he didn't even remember this, but he imagined that that perhaps was something he could have said sort of in joking and not realize that I took it totally seriously because my dad said it and I believe everything my father says. Okay, so sometimes these things are a little bit hard to get rid of, okay? But rejecting one of your parents' ideas is not the same as rejecting your parents. Okay? So maybe you say, Mom, Dad, you told me this, you believed it, and so forth, but I don't see the evidence for it. Okay? Still feel good about you, but I don't buy that. Okay. Now, it's amazing how often I find people who are extremely smart who are able to say, I don't know. I want you to consider that there perhaps could be sort of three states of truth. One is, or let's say veracity. One is this, I believe this to be true. Another is, I believe this to be false. And the other one is truth value unknown. I just don't know. And I'm saying maybe it's okay to take some of these guys that you've either believed were true or maybe even false, okay, and throw them into this I don't know category right there as you're doing the house cleaning. And don't feel bad about that. Don't feel bad that you don't know. A year ago, my wife and I were having dinner at a fellow who is probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met. He is a member of the National Academy of Science. He's actually a science advisor to President Obama. And we were just chatting about all sorts of things at dinner, and I was impressed by how often this very knowledgeable man was able to say, I don't know. It wasn't that he was saying, I'm not interested in chatting about that. He just was saying, I don't have the facts, so I don't know yet. This evidence gathering, however, when we're trying to decide what's true and what's not known, can be difficult. So I'm going to tell you a story about a cat that we used to have. Okay? His name was Jerry, and we had Jerry for a long, long time. Not around anymore, but we had Jerry for a long, long time. And Jerry was an outdoor cat, and every day as I was getting in the car and about to come down here, Jerry would be sitting there and seeing me, okay? And I imagined what was going on in Jerry's mind. Now the fact is that sometimes Jerry went in the car as well. Okay? But where did Jerry always go in the car? Jerry always went to the vet, all right? So his model of where the car went is to the vet. So when Jerry saw me getting in the car every day, okay, and driving away, in Jerry's mind he's saying, Alan's going to the vet again, okay? Sometimes gathering, we don't have all the evidence, okay? We just don't have the evidence, all right? And then we say, well, then I'm not so sure about things, okay? That was certainly the case with Jerry, and I think it's the case with us as well. All right, I don't know. So, I want to talk to some of you in particular right now about a topic that is sometimes called male answer syndrome, okay? Now, does it apply to all males? No. Does it not apply to any females? No. But anyway, this is the name it's been given, and when I describe it, if you haven't heard it before, maybe you'll say, oh, yes, I know that, and it applies to every male I know. So what is this thing called male answer syndrome? It's this thing that it doesn't matter whether you're in a foreign city and you haven't the slightest idea where you are, or somebody asks you, where are you? Or what's the state of the economy? Or how do you fix this car? All of those things, okay? Then, if somebody asks you about it, you gotta say something, okay? And you gotta act like you know about this thing, and otherwise you feel like a fool, all right? So, you've got to give some answer. And I'm suggesting, not so cool. Instead of always having an answer to things like that, consider this response. Everything on my Y chromosome demands that I give you an answer for which I know nothing. However, I'm just going to say, I don't know. Haven't got a clue. And you might feel better for it. Okay. So, if I am picking on some of the group, let me pick on the remainder of the group and describe another problem, which I call female answer syndrome. Okay? Now, is this something that applies to all females? No. Is it something that doesn't apply to any males? No. All right. What is female answer syndrome? It is that unless I am totally certain of something, I will shut my mouth. How's that come across? So I have two people right here. All right. And I'm a teacher, but this isn't just in a teaching situation. This is in conversation. This is with other people, employers, whatever. But here's two people. And one of them knows all sorts of stuff. And one of them is as dumb as a rock, okay? But here I am chatting away and saying things and posing questions and so forth, and neither of them make any response. From my point of view, think of me as Jerry the cat if you like. From my point of view, as I witness this, how can I separate these two situations? The person who knows all the stuff and the person who's clueless. I can't, all right? So, maybe it's okay with you to be equated with the clueless person, okay? But maybe if you don't like that, you just might speak up. How might you do that? I consider using some of your scientific techniques, like error bars. What if when you answer, you say something like, I'm not certain, but with 80% certainty, I believe, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So you just throw some stuff in there. And then if they say, oh, you're wrong, you say, well, I allowed for that. So, so don't be silent. Otherwise, you're equated with the rock. Have you ever heard people say things like, I've always believed so-and-so. I was taught to believe so-and-so. People in my neck of the woods believe so-and-so. That was a rather homey one. Whenever I hear something like that, after I've asked somebody, you know, what is your opinion on something? And they respond something of that sort, I want to say, excuse me, I didn't ask you what you were taught. I didn't ask you what people who you associate with believe. I ask you what you believe. By virtue of you telling me this business about people in my neck of the woods believe so-and-so, or I was always taught, are you telling me actually that you've actually never thought about this? That you've just accepted what all of these people around you have said and done it without question? Okay, but has that happened to you folks as well, whether you've made those remarks? Sometimes getting rid of these ideas that we've been immersed in for our entire lives is so difficult, okay? But sometimes maybe you should ask yourselves the question, I seem to believe the same as all the folks around me. Oops. Is that a candidate for something that needs to be tested? Have I just accepted it because all the people around me accept it? Should I really give it an extra test? So I often imagine two people coming from, across the planet or sitting in front of us. And they have different attitudes on things. And sometimes, oftentimes, those attitudes, it's politics, it's religion, it's something, are gotten from their families, okay? And I thought, you know, so she believes something and he believes something else, and she recognizes that she got it from her parents, and she imagines that he also got the same, well, let's call it religion, let's call it politics. He got his attitudes also from his parents. Does she stand back and say to herself, wow, was I lucky? I got just the right parents, okay? They were right on everything, okay? Or she says, you know, people all over the planet, all sorts of different attitudes. Am I just so lucky that I got the right ones? Maybe not. Maybe none of us got the right ones in terms of them knowing everything, okay? They're okay people, but maybe they just don't have the correct wisdom on every single subject. I want to take a side trip right now, and I want to talk about goals, okay? Where are you heading? So in our hiking metaphor, we're talking about that mountaintop or these 50 states or something. With your folks, it's careers and families and other things that you plan to do with your lives. These should be tested as well. These are things that are critical to you, and you should pull those out and say, always thought I was going to do such and such. Why? Why did I think I should do such and such? Gosh, I made this decision to be whatever when I was 10 years old. What did I know about that when I was 10 years old? Lots of Dean Scholars have gone on to MD, PhD programs, okay? As far as I can tell, it is the most competitive process for graduate education, okay? They really have to be top students. Memorize all this stuff so that medical schools like them. Do all this research so the research part of the MD, PhD program takes them seriously. Very tough to get into, okay? Means an enormous commitment in your life to this, all right? You got to work on 2 degrees, sometimes have postdoctoral things in 2 different areas. Long time before you get on with your lives. I often thought that some students did this because they were so competitive and they felt like it's the ultimate prize, okay? And I've always just won prizes, okay? And somebody held it out there and said, this is the ultimate prize, getting into an MD, PhD program, I'll go after that. As opposed to, is this really what I want to do with my life? When you are assessing these goals, one of the most difficult things about it is that you don't know whether you're going to be able to achieve that goal or not, and you don't know what the value of that goal is going to be, even if you get it. So, I once knew a woman, and she told me about a competition she had done on horseback. It had to do with, are you a good rider on your horse? And I really had a difficult. It was tricky for me to figure out why she would want to do that. And had to do with riding and having an egg on a spoon and keep riding while everybody else was riding until the egg fell off. And I posed a question to her, and wow, did she not take it well. And I'm going to pose it to you in a moment. Well, actually right now. Suppose that there was a competition to eat shit. Got it? Got it? Would you want to win a shit-eating contest? Have you been engaged in shit-eating contests? Have you? Have you been in things and then you thought about it later and you said, I didn't want to do that anyway, all right? What event that is in the slightest bit, let me say, competitive event, which is in the slightest bit attached to education. What event gets the most publicity from our newspapers and television, okay? I believe it is the National Spelling Bee, all right? Now, can you come up with an activity that more celebrates non-creativity, okay? You are absolutely, in this competition, not allowed to be creative, okay? Oh, you could spell it, or. No, not allowed. We celebrate non-creativity, and then we make a big deal about it, okay? There's so many other things that we could celebrate associated with education, okay? But that's the one that gets it. Now, if spelling bees are fun, okay. I don't think the children in front of the television cameras are, as they're sweating bullets, are having a whole lot of fun doing it, nor were they having fun when they wasted hours every afternoon trying to memorize words. Okay. So, for me, that's the shit-eating contest, but for some people, it's not. All I ask you to do is consider that. I had a friend who had an administrative job in at this university. And then there was going to be a vacancy, and he wanted to move up to the next position. And he'd actually not done a great job in the one he had, okay? And he didn't enjoy it. And I was wondering, why do you want to go up to this next one? And he thought about it, and he said, well, I don't know. Can we step back from these competitions? You folks have won almost every competition in your lives, okay? Except the athletic ones. But you are so super achievers, okay? Fine. Step back and say, is this something I want to win? Is this a goal I want, okay? Or is this one more shit-eating contest? I had a friend, his name was Gene Gollop. He was 15 years older than I, maybe a little bit more. He was in my area of scientific computing. He was at Stanford in the computer science department and the math department, and he actually became the chairman of the computer science department at Stanford. He became a member of the National Academy of Engineering as well as the National Academy of Science. He was loved all over the world. In fact, when he died several years ago, there was a celebration that was actually worldwide on his birthday, and perhaps somewhat because he had the unusual birthday of February 29th. But out there, right there in the outside the O's cafeteria, we had our local celebration of Gene Gollop's birthday, right after he died. He was so celebrated. He could be invited any place on the planet. He was invited into people's homes. All sorts of people loved him, okay? Except perhaps himself. He was always asking things like, have I proved my last theorem? What's going to happen? You know, do people really care? Goodness gracious. Too bad he just didn't have that self-confidence. He didn't have the sort of harmony in his head that I'm asking you folks to give. He certainly achieved, but did he have the rest of that? And I don't think so. And in fact, just a couple years before he died, in an email message, he said, Alan, I always envied you. And stopped me for a second, and he said, and I thought, goodness, I haven't achieved the sort of things that you have, the same sort of things that you have achieved. And he said, Alan, I always envied you because you seemed so content. And I wasn't going to diminish that. The fact that I am content, I'm totally happy with. Suppose you folks won a Nobel Prize, okay? Maybe that's your goal, all right? I'm not saying toss it away. But realize most of your life is going to be spent towards that goal, okay? Then you don't know whether you're actually going to get it. And a small amount of your life is after you have it. And a tiny amount of your life is when you actually receive it, okay? And it's climbing a mountain, being on the mountaintop, climbing back down. You must enjoy the process of climbing the mountain or working for the Nobel Prize for that to be rewarding to you. If that's a good goal, if you want it, say, am I going to enjoy getting it, or am I going to enjoy getting there? Will that be a good thing? Will I enjoy that process? So, I want to say something about memories, good memories, bad memories. I want to say something about the importance of bad memories, or that is, memories about bad things. Suppose you like chocolate cake. Suppose you have chocolate cake 3 times a day. Oops, doesn't get so special anymore, does it? Okay? The absence of it, in fact, makes you appreciate it more later on. So when I was camping, some people asked me, what was your best state among those 50 when you're camping? Or sometimes people say, what was your worst? Well, the worst, I will tell you, was Kansas, okay? Not something intrinsic with Kansas, but the deal was, I was all by myself. It was 15 degrees outside and inside the tent. It was, I had nothing to do, okay? I didn't have a light that I would shine all night to read, so I didn't have anything to do in the evening other than listen to my radio. Okay, so it was very boring and cold and awful. Okay? But boy, do I remember it. It's really burned in here. It's a memory. Not a great memory, okay? But because it was like that, then I appreciate the other things so much more. Consider someday, it's just awful. It's the worst day of your life, okay? But you're going to be able to say on the next day or some other day or some day that's not so good, you're going to say, oh, but it's not as bad as that one, okay? Appreciate these things, these memories that you have, okay? Appreciate them. They don't all have to be good. Okay, I'm almost done. When I was about your age, and even beyond that, I had this idea about feelings meant nothing. I was Mr. Rationality, okay, and feelings were worthless, okay? I have come 180 degrees around on that one. Feelings are really important, okay? If somebody says they feel bad, okay? And you should really pay attention to that. It's not they're just making it up. In fact, we know that there's all sorts of chemistry going on in their bodies that explains those feelings. I had a great-grandmother, Estelle. She was raised as an old order Mennonite. For those of you who don't know about that, perhaps you've seen Amish people and horses and buggies and that sort of thing. That's the way she was raised. One of their things is they don't want, the older Mennonites, the children don't get to decide, the older Mennonites don't want the children to get, their expression is, too worldly, so they don't want them to go to too much schooling. In fact, Virginia law now allows these people, if you are an old order Mennonite, you're allowed to quit school after the 8th grade. Okay, so, and she didn't even go close to that. But she certainly was in touch with feelings. She didn't know anything about chemicals and hormones rushing through her body. She didn't know about moving large muscle masses causes these things to happen, but perhaps relieve depression. What she knew was, when I feel bad, I go out in my garden and I pull weeds. Did she know that the action of pulling the weeds got things going and caused her? No, she didn't realize that. She didn't have any cause and effect like that. What she knew was, when I'm down, I go in my garden and I pull weeds. Feelings were certainly real to her. But I think there's a danger in this feeling thing. And here's the danger. Sometimes when people are giving you an opinion, they say, I feel so-and-so. Okay? Now, I wonder, when you say, I feel so-and-so, do you mean, I've thought about this and I believe such and such? Or do they mean, well, I just sort of accepted so-and-so and I feel that way? Okay? And if it's that second thing, that when you say, I feel such and such, that's the one that sort of displeases me. Because if you can't explain it, if you don't have evidence, maybe you should just say, I don't have an opinion, or I'm not that sure about my opinion about something. Okay, people? This is where you live, okay? It's got your emotions, it's got your attitudes, it's got facts, it's got a bunch of ideas, it's got prejudices. All of that is up here. This is where you live. You ought to make that a good place to live, okay? And my advice to you is, as you go through things, as you consider what's up here, just like with the backpack, travel light. Okay? Thank you very much.